All right, here we go. Right? We're going. Hey, good morning. It is I, your host, Pogo Kiddo, with yet another episode of Redstone Lapis Lazuli. Yes, again. How is it how is this even possible? Oh no, that's the wrong one. There we go. Back to game. Hey, check this out. Um where in oh wait, I gotta hide my FPS, dude. If you see my FPS, then you'll know. Options, video settings, extras, show FPS, no, apply, done. There. So no one's staring at my FPS, which is only for me to look at because diagnostics. Anyways, yes, good morning. Here I am. Where the hell am I? Where am I? I'm in the middle of a machine, right? It looks like I'm in a giant machine. And it is true, I am in the guts of a machine. But it's a familiar machine. This is a machine you know. This is the train station. This is the beginning of a train station. You know this machine well, and if you don't, then you will know it well. So yeah, this is. I'm just starting the. The deal here. Okay, so we're inside this the big structure that I had created on the outside or on top of my base in the beginning. We're on top of it. We're inside of it. And I decided instead of making the train tracks go this way and covering up all that stuff there and just being ugly looking from that side, I decided to put the train tracks on the back side. So they're back. The train station is going to be on the back side. And I'm going to make the tracks not go like this. I think they're going to go underneath, under the floor, and only pop up here and here for like to get in and to get out. So you hit your thing and you pop back here, bop, and you go. Or maybe even back here in the center. I don't know. But it shouldn't be. I mean, like, that's fun. That's just fun, like, creative stuff because I already know how to do it the regular way. That's why it's important to learn, like, the regular way first, because after you learn the regular way, then you can start, like, improvising off of that stuff. So the regular way would be one right here and one right here. But look how far apart they are. That's what I'm saying. I built this station how many times? Well, not this particular station, but I've built something like this how many times? And always, the start and the exit are far apart. I want to change that. Like, I made a change. I started changing it last time with my last train station, but not enough. I can do better. So yeah, that's this is what I'm working on. This is the thing I'm working on. So the way I have it set up, this is a funny design actually. The front half of the train station, that is to say the control panel part, is from a guy named Frilioth. So Frilioth goes up to like about here. And up to that part, and then afterwards the yellow and the purple, and then the tracks and stuff, all of that is from another guy named Ken from K1 Gaming. So I just pretty much took two different systems and I mashed them together and they work great. All I have to do is work out the reset system. Which is like it shouldn't be too hard. over here I need to fit in the reset system and then the cart return system if it's not if there's an empty cart. And then I might even have to sink all this down under here so that the floor, it's not going to mess up the floor. I can close this off and it'll just be like, yeah, the cart will be over here. I want the cart to be here and here. The exit and entrance to be like back here. So I'll make it happen. In addition, I made the spiffy water elevator. Check it out. Yay! I finally took the time to do it. It was bugging me for the longest time. I just decided to take out this wall. It was unnecessary, I felt. And instead of, I couldn't do it here anymore because now there's a train station. So I couldn't put the elevator here. Like, that's not going to work. So it ended up going back here, and that ended up being a good thing anyways. Because it would have been cramped here with this stuff. I would have had to move my elevator again. So this worked out. This works out. Now this is like a functional part of my base because it's so easy to get to in and out. The shader pack I'm using is called Rethinking Voxels, which is why it looks so cool. The shadows look so cool and so realistic. Sure, there's other shader packs out there, but they don't do shadows like this. And the light. I dig it a lot. And then the PBR pack is by a guy named Puting or something. Puting. Yeah, he's on GitHub, and it's great. It's great. Let's see. What else have I done? Hop on a horse. So I've got my dudes here, all grown up and ready to go. All ready to go. So the next step will just be to transport them to their location, which I've already got set up here. It's already set up. We're already ready to go. I'll drop them in here, and then they will naturally flow to their workstation, and then I'll just tear down all the dirt. Easy peasy. And then I can begin to work on their actual trades, because that's like the not fun part. To work on their trades. But once all that's done, it's sort of like a resurrection pod. Because if I die, I will be able to return to that location and just buy new equipment. And then in the course of trading, I will gain levels to enchant anything I need to enchant. So it's like basically a resurrection ship. Am I a Cylon in this game? Kinda, because I die and come back unless I play a hardcore world, which I don't. So are humans hardcore? That's funny. Kinda. We're kinda hardcore. That's awesome. Humans are hardcore. I mean, we kind of are, dude. I mean, think about it. Look at our ancestors. Look how far we've come. But I don't think people appreciate the deal we made. I don't think people appreciate it. Do you remember the deal we made? Do you remember? I don't think you do. I don't think you even know what I'm talking about, and that's okay because I'm being very vague about stuff. So, humans, we didn't always look like this. This is millions and millions of, well, I wouldn't say, yeah, millions of years. Maybe not millions. hundreds of thousands for sure, but more important than hundreds and thousands of years, this right here, all this right here is the result of incredible amounts of energy. It's not just that I'm a natural like creature of Earth and I'm just growing naturally into my natural form and stuff. This form here has been altered. It has been altered because there's been inputs of energy into this form, which then changed it into its current incarnation. Now, I don't mean like my particular form, but I mean like humans in general. Humans, you know, we didn't just like pop out like looking like this, right? We evolved to get to this point. So that means there's you can trace it back. And when you trace it back to our ancestors, see, I didn't even think I'd be talking about this. I forgot. I didn't look it up. We have a common ancestor. Damn it! Who is it? Before Homo sapien. Before Homo sapien, there was another Homo erectus. Homo erectus. Before Homo sapien, there was Homo erectus. Homo erectus made a fantastic discovery. This is where we made the deal. Prior to Homo erectus, the ancestors to humans, prior to Homo erectus, the ancestors to humans were very, very close to the animals, to every other animal, in that they could not alter or change their environment very much. I mean, a little bit, but not a whole bunch. And their energy inputs were all the same. All animals have the same energy inputs. You either got energy from the sun, or you got energy from eating a creature that got energy from the sun, or you got energy from eating other creatures that ate other creatures, that ate creatures that get energy from the sun. Pretty much for the vast majority of life on Earth, that's the places where you got energy. Some creatures learn to get energy from geothermal vents. Whoa. Some creatures learn to get energy from geothermal vents, and I'm sure there's other forms of energy. And then like there's fungus that gets energy from decaying life, but then it's getting life from other creatures that get life from, you know. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Energy, there's only a few places to get energy. And based on that paradigm, life evolved into its forms. But our ancestors, Homo erectus, made a fantastic discovery. They discovered fire. And that changed things, because when you take fire, what is fire? Fire is just rapid oxidization, which breaks down chemical bonds, and releases energy in the form of light and heat. That's that big word. It releases energy. It releases energy. So Homo erectus learned about fire and mastered it, learned it, and took control of it. And by doing that, that's a form of energy that no other creature on Earth prior to this point had done. No other creature uses fire. Fire is a form of energy. Suddenly, Homo erectus wasn't getting its energy just from eating creatures or eating plants or getting warm in the sun. It was also getting energy from burning stuff. That was like the big thing. That was the big thing. Now you can take a branch where it got its energy. Where did this branch get its energy? From the sun. So you take this stored sun energy and you burn it to get the rest of the energy out. And suddenly now, Homo erectus has the ability to see at night, can go out at night, past sundown. Suddenly, Homo erectus has the ability to cook food. When you cook food, the body, and you eat it, the body, it kills all the parasites in the food, number one, and number two, it makes more of the nutrients in the food bioavailable to your body, so your body can like actually get the nutrients out of the stuff before you poop it all out again. All of this is energy, right? So all this extra energy that the body is getting for Homo erectus, that literally changed the physiology and the mental capacity of Homo erectus. It literally changed them. The discovery of fire literally changed them, and it changed our ancestors, and so basically we are the children of this energy input. And look how much it has changed us. Like, look how much it changed us. Compare me to my ancestor, Homo erectus. That input of energy was massive. Massive change. Because what would happen? Because the children of Homo erectus would go on to like extinguish vast tracts of life on Earth by releasing, through the power of fire, by releasing all the stored carbon that had taken millions and millions of years to put into the Earth. Millions of years to put all those tons of carbon into the Earth. And what do the children of Homo erectus do? What do? They dig it up and burn it and put it back into the atmosphere in like 100 years. It took millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of years to put it in the Earth, and the children of Homo erectus come along and put it all back into the atmosphere in 100 years. So I think that is the primary story. That's like the major story. That's like the big story. The children of Homo erectus have to learn to get their energy in another way. Otherwise, they'll kill themselves and all life on Earth, like they're doing right now. That's like the background on top of which you layer everything else. Because, all right, here, what's fact. This is from a guy at Bearded Genius on Twitter, I think. Fact. We're in the 20s. Sounds so weird. It's so synonymous with the 1920s. Sounds like a bygone era when women were still fighting for their rights. The upper classes were living a life of hedonism whilst people starved and the world was on the verge of financial ruin and war. History doesn't rhyme. Or it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. It likes to rhyme. This is like a little flat area. Right before you get to the snow. I need to make a camp here. I need to make a path up here and then make a camp so I can start the ascent to climb the mountain. This is the path by which you get up to the mountain. But I haven't worked it out yet. I haven't. Yeah, and that is powdered snow. So if I walk on it, I fall in and start to freeze to death. So I have to come up here with the right equipment. I can't just go walking. I can't just go walking up the mountain. I will die. All right. For some reason, my live chat is disabled. I don't know. That's weird. That's weird. I liked having a live chat because then I would, then I know people are watching me and stuff, and I can interact and get some new information. But okay, so we have the children of Homo erectus, who in their thirst for energy are destroying their plant, the where they live, kind of like yeast. Yeast does the same thing. Ooh, that's a plane over there. If I can get to over to that side. Yeast does. Do you know how you make beer? Do you know how you make beer? Here's what you do to make beer. You get a bunch of water, and you get a bunch of sugar, and you pour it in there, and then you get a bunch of yeast, and you pour it in and you put it into the bucket with the um with the water, and then you throw hops in there and other stuff. But basically, what makes beer into have alcohol is the yeast in the beer eats the sugar, and you keep it warm. You don't want to keep it cold. You want to keep it warm so that the yeast grows. The yeast is in the water, and then it sees all the sugar. It's like, oh, I love sugar. So the yeast just starts eating sugar, and the more sugar it eats, it's like, oh, I'm gonna multiply. Boom, and it multiplies. And then this new yeast is like, oh, sugar, great. They keep eating the sugar. There's more sugar than they can possibly eat, so they just keep eating it more and more and more and more, and growing more and more and more and more. Okay, but the problem is they're stuck inside this bucket. Like they can't go anywhere. So what happens is as they eat the sugar, the yeast excretes a waste product. What is the waste product they excrete? Alcohol. The yeast eats the sugar and excretes alcohol, which in nature is no problem, right? Because then like nature would just take the alcohol away, or supposedly. But in this case, humans have engineered it so that the alcohol has nowhere to go. They're basically sitting in their own waste. So the yeast keeps eating the sugar and then excreting alcohol, but the alcohol has nowhere to go. So they basically turn the water, they increase the content of alcohol steadily, more and more and more, until it gets to a point where, like, even though there's sugar, and even though it's warm, and even though there's lots of yeast, and the yeast eats the sugar, there's so much alcohol in the environment that the yeast dies. It literally kills itself with alcohol by eating the sugar. And then eventually, yeah, and then when it's done, then you strain out all the solid stuff, and what you have left is alcohol, like an alcoholic beverage, and you drink it. So the children of Homo erectus are kind of like yeast, in that they're in their thirst for energy. They don't understand that they're in a bucket and their waste doesn't go anywhere. That they have to actually deal with their waste, or their waste will kill them. That's the number one. That's the backdrop for everything. That's the backdrop for everything. Everything, literally everything, is based on that. Like, okay, let's come down. Let's see. Let's come down a little bit. I'm gonna kill this guy. Let's come down a little bit. Let's think about planet wide. What's going on the planet wide right now? We're on the brink of a world war. Why? Why are we on the brink of a world war? One country named Russia is a petrol state. That means its economy is primarily based on the sale and production of oil, of energy. So remember I told you about how like the backdrop is that the children of Homo erectus are trying to satisfy their hunger for energy, and they're going to destroy all life on Earth unless they find another way. Okay. So Russia is a powerful petrol state. It controls a vast resource of petroleum energy. But the world understands, we humans understand, we need to get off of oil. We need to stop using oil. Otherwise, we're going to kill ourselves. But that doesn't sit well with Russia, because Russia gets all its power from oil. So if you leave oil, then Russia will have no power anymore. And if Russia has no power, how is it going to hold on to all of its, all of its territories that it conquered if it has no power? Because the people aren't there willingly. You don't give them a say. You don't let them vote for anything. You pretend to, but it's not a real democracy. So they invaded Ukraine. They invaded a whole other nation to steal their resources and their people and their children. And they can do it because they're a petrol state, because they get energy from oil. And like all of this is kind of like, to get energy from oil, like in a way, Homo erectus kind of broke the covenant with God. Well, I don't know if there was a covenant. I don't know what it was, right? But it was the deal. It was the game. The game of life on Earth was that you got your energy from only a couple of sources, and that was it. And Homo erectus like changed everything by burning things. And it literally changed Homo erectus. I mean, it literally changed them. They used to have, it made their brains bigger, their heads bigger, and it made their jaws smaller. Because, you don't need a gigantic jaw to chew hard-ass nuts and raw meat if you're, like, cooking it now. And since you don't have the gigantic muscles to, like, grind up mechanically some stuff, now you have, like, room to make intricate sounds with your mouth. Like, birds are cooler, right? They can sing way better than humans. I don't know, can they talk? Do they have speech? Can they make the same sounds that we do? I don't know. It's interesting. It's fun. So that's the backdrop. So we can't deal with our problems right now as a globe, because we have this petrol state that's trying to destroy another country. That's the backdrop. All right, this petrol state, who's that guy? I don't know who that guy is, but he's a Russian guy, and he's meeting with the Chinese president. These two guys are buddy. Why? Well, China has no oil. And Russia does. So China's been getting lots of real cheap oil from Russia, so it can grow. because China wants to take over Taiwan. It too has imperialist ambitions. It wants to invade Taiwan, the same way it invaded Tibet. It just wants to take over territory. Oh, yeah, it's right. The Dalai Lama picked a new Dalai Lama, the next Dalai Lama. It was a kid from Mongolia. And in response to that, China shut down a bunch of stuff with Mongolia, and Mongolia had to apologize and say that the Dalai Lama would never go back to Mongolia. But it's interesting that the Dalai Lama picked the next Dalai Lama because China passed a law saying that it was illegal to reincarnate outside of China. So the Dalai Lama broke the law. The Dalai Lama reincarnated outside of China, and China said, no, you can't do that, Dalai Lama. What happened before was that the Dalai Lama, there was another guy, right? The number 2, and I forget his name, like the Pana something. But there was the number 2 person that was reincarnated as a little boy, and the Dalai Lama was like, "Yep, that's the number 2 guy." And then the Chinese officials, the communist officials, came by and kidnapped that kid, and then put in a new person. Said, "No, that's the person now." So China is trying to take over literally the culture of the Tibetans away from them by kidnapping their religious leaders and putting in state officials instead. So I was afraid that China would do the same thing when the Dalai Lama picked the next next person. So far it hasn't happened. I don't know. I'm hoping that the new Dalai Lama is safe and that China doesn't get him. Right? Isn't that weird? Totalitarian states are awful. They're terrible. We got to get rid of them. There's a reason why our ancestors fled the kings and overthrew the kings, because they're terrible. All right, what else do I have here? In France. Okay, in France right now, they're doing a bunch of riots. The people are rioting because the French president, Macron, passed a law to raise the retirement age in France. And he did so without a vote from the parliament. He bypassed the vote from parliament to pass the law to raise the retirement age. So yeah, the people in France are protesting. They should. The government, Macron is acting like a king by bypassing parliament for this really, really important thing. Like, I think it's foolish to raise the retirement age. They want to do the same thing here in the United States. They want to push up the age for Social Security to like 70 years old, and that's stupid. I think that's dumb. They're saying they have to do it because they need to save money to keep the fund solvent, but they're going about it the wrong way. The problem isn't that people are retiring too early. The problem is that you're not taxing the rich. You're not taxing the rich. There's a cap on Social Security, on income for Social Security, that if you make more than the cap, then you don't pay taxes on Social Security. So the richer you are, the less you pay to Social Security. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. If you want to keep Social Security solvent, you don't raise the age. You lower the age for retirement, and you increase the cap on Social Security for income for Social Security taxes. That's how you keep it solvent. And you don't penalize people who work even if they receive Social Security benefits. I mean, you don't want some rich guy making $1 million still pulling benefits from Social Security. That would be maybe a bad idea. But if you're if you're working part-time to supplement your Social Security income, that should not eat away totally your Social Security benefit. Like, you should be able to work and still be able to collect benefits. Because even if you because you're not working full time. You're not going like full bore like you were before. Like you're kind of taking it easy. So the same thing with disabled people. Disabled people are stuck in a cycle of poverty. They cannot escape their poverty because if they make any more money, if they come up at all, if they make a little bit of money or get a job, a part-time job doing anything, they are at risk of losing their benefits. And if they lose their benefits, then they're totally screwed because there's no way they could work full-time to support themselves. Their disability doesn't allow them to. So the system is rigged to keep disabled people in poverty no matter what. They cannot get out. They cannot get out. And that's unjust. That's wrong. So, I mean, oh my God, I'm kind of like bouncing all over the place here. Because how did I get started talking on disability benefits, Social Security, retirement? Oh yeah, that's right. Macron is going to raise the retirement age. That's a bad idea. Like, we have to divorce ourselves from the old ways of thinking, where there was scarcity. We don't have scarcity anymore. We don't have scarcity. If anything, we have a problem with distribution. We can produce plenty. We make plenty. The problem isn't production. The problem is distribution. How do you distribute this stuff, this benefit? That's where we need to focus our attention. Distribution, not on regulation of the poorest people, because I guarantee you the poorest people are not the ones who are the biggest drain on societies. That would be the billionaires. They're the ones who expend vast amounts of resources for their hedonistic, egotistical, narcissistic pursuits. Look at Elon Musk. He could have solved world hunger. And that motherfucker instead chose to buy a platform to blow up his own ego. He could have solved world hunger. He could have saved the world from the climate apocalypse. He could have done it. For $44 billion, he could have saved all of humankind from the climate apocalypse. We wouldn't have to go to Mars if you would just save this planet. But that wouldn't have satisfied Elon Musk's ego. No. He had to spend vast amounts of resources making people miserable to satisfy his ego. That's an example of bad allocation of resources. It's a bad idea to have billionaires. We ought to tax billionaires out of existence and use those resources and redistribute those resources to people who could best use them, like disabled people. Like, was it Mozart who was deaf? Like, one of the greatest piano players ever. I think it was Mozart. I hope. Let me double check this, so I don't sound like an idiot. I mean, I already do, but still. Mozart, deaf. Yes, Mozart was deaf, and he was like the greatest piano player ever. That's a disability, dude. And if you would have written off Mozart because of his deafness, we would have lost the greatest piano player that humans ever produced. If you would have written off disabilities. So it's dumb. It's stupid to write off disabled people. They're some of the greatest people ever. Disabled people are some of the greatest people ever. Instead of giving resources to billionaires who waste it on hedonistic pursuits that benefit nobody, give it to disabled people so they're not living on the verge of poverty, and they will produce amazing works of greatness for humankind. God, it's a no-brainer. I don't know. Maybe it's a no-brainer for me because it's a Sunday morning and I'm drinking coffee and I'm at home and I'm nice and warm and I don't have to worry about a stock portfolio. You know, I don't have like missiles flying at me to kill me. Like, for example, remember I told you how Russia was is invading Ukraine because they're a fascist petrol state. Here's what they're doing. Imagine you're at a Sunday morning and you're just making breakfast, you know, in your kitchen. You're just like doo frying eggs, the coffee's on, you know. Doo. You're just chilling out. You're just relaxing. Boom! All of a sudden, half your apartment building gets blown up and your neighbor's dead. Your neighbor's apartment complex is no longer there. Your neighbor's dead. And your bedroom's gone. Your breakfast is over because there's no more electricity because like water's flying out everywhere because half the apartment complex is blown up. Because some fucking Russian fucking mob boss is invading your country and wants you to give up and give all your stuff to him. That's why Russia invaded Ukraine. But yeah, this is what Russia's doing on the daily, every fucking day. Russia's shooting missiles to kill people in Ukraine. Imagine you're just eating breakfast and a missile comes in and blows up your fucking apartment complex. You're dead. Like, so this is ongoing. This is current and ongoing. Man, I don't hear anything. And what does Donald Trump say? Actually, no, fuck Donald Trump. Listen to what Ron Johnson says. Ron Johnson.
Wait, you don't think we should be sending all this money to Ukraine, right?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that nobody wants to provide aid and comfort to Putin. He's evil.
But you do, Ron Johnson. You want to provide aid and comfort to Putin.
He's committing atrocities and war crimes. That being said, I think most people are highly sympathetic with the Ukrainians.
Yeah, dude, they're getting invaded by Putin, by a oil oligarchy.
Defending their freedom, their children, their territory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I will say, back here in Wisconsin, the war in Ukraine is not a popular thing.
Yeah, good. I think everyone in the United States is pretty much against the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We're pretty fucking pissed. I'm really, really, really angry that Putin invaded Ukraine. Yeah, and I'm really, really sympathetic, and I really, really want to help the Ukrainian people retake their country from these fascists, these fucking Nazis. The Russian invaders are Nazis, dude. They're fucking terrible. They kidnap kids and like level cities with their artillery. Yeah, they're evil. They're terrible, terrible people. I hate the Russian invasion. You're right. And I'm glad Wisconsins also hate the Russian invasion.
And again, I've got to. I don't see this getting better day after day.
Yo, dude, it's pretty bad. Yeah, I don't see it getting better right now because NATO has not provided Ukraine with enough weapons and equipment. NATO has been really, really, really slow. They announced the tanks like weeks ago, and the tanks haven't arrived yet. Where are the tanks, dude? Where are the tanks? Where's the ammo? That's the big thing, right? That's the huge thing. Russia's got tons and tons and tons and tons of ammo. Why haven't we stepped up our production of ammo and to ship it over there? We gave the Pentagon like a record amount of money, like billions and billions of dollars, like $800 billion, dude. Why don't we send some of our fucking like ammunition over to Ukraine since they're actually using it like right now? I mean, I understand you're over there looking at China and being like, oh dude, there's China. All the more reason to step up our stuff. I don't know. That in order to build equipment like that, however, we have to get the money from somewhere. And that somewhere ought to be the rich. So Ron Johnson is making a strong case that we need to send Ukraine more equipment. Like, I think F-16 fighter jets. if Ukrainians could get air superiority, they would be able to retake their country. I think that would be the thing that breaks the logjam. Is because check it out right now in Bakhmut. Oh no, dude! Here, file save as a JPEG so everyone can see it. Okay. Okay, so in Bakhmut, this is a key city. This is a key city, and the Russians have been slowly crushing it, and trying to push in. The way they've been doing it is this is the Wagner group, which is a mercenary group, and the mercenary group recruits people from prison, the Russian prisons. They take people out of the Russian prisons, and they say, "Here, guy, here's like almost no equipment. Your job is to take your group of 5 people and go as close to them as possible, and then stop, and then wait there for us to catch up." So what happens is they send the first group, and the first group's obliterated. Then they send the second group, gets obliterated. Third group, obliterated. Fourth group, obliterated. Fifth group, obliterated. Sixth group, obliterated. But they saw where the obliteration came from. So when they send the seventh group of persons, 9 out of the 10 people die, but they get a better view of where the defenders are. So Russia sacrifices people over and over and over again just to get a bead on where the defenders are, and then they pressure the defenders to move them back. But the cost is that they're basically throwing bodies at the defenders. So the defenders are killing a lot of people, but they're running out of ammo, and yet it's hard to supply them because they're starting to get pinched. Their supply routes are really, really close to the front lines. That's their supply line. Like I don't know how they're, it's getting to the point they're not going to be able to get out. So I think we definitely need to provide Ukraine with better equipment if we're going to reverse this situation. We can't let Russia just roll over them, destroy their cities, enslave their population, because they're just going to keep doing it. They're not going to stop at Ukraine. They're going to keep going. Why would they stop? Why would they stop if it worked? They would keep going. And if we don't stop them there, we have to stop them here. So Ron Johnson has a backwards kind of point. Nobody in the United States is in favor of the Russian invasion. We all want the Russian invasion to stop, and the way you make it stop is by sending more weapons and jets to Ukraine.
There may have been a situation where we prevented Putin from invading. I don't think he would have done so under Trump, but
yeah, because the deal with Trump was that, remember, Trump and Putin are on the same team. Trump and Putin were on the same team. The deal with the way that Putin wanted to take over Ukraine was through corruption. The same way he took over Belarus. If you look at Belarus, Belarus is not a free country. Belarus is a puppet of Russia. Belarus had an election, and then as soon as they picked the guy who wanted to go closer to the EU, Russia arrested that guy, sent him back to Russia to sit in prison, and installed their own puppet. And the puppet of Belarus allows Russia to use Belarus territory to attack Ukraine. So that is the way Putin would have preferred to take over Ukraine. Remember the way what Ukraine used to look like. Here, remember the timeline of Ukraine. Here, this is the best way. Remember the timeline for Ukraine. Prior to the election of Zelensky, the president of Ukraine was Yanukovych. Yanukovych, if you remember, was on Team Putin. Yanukovych is on Team Putin. So Putin would have preferred to take over Ukraine The same way he took over Belarus, by installing a puppet. He installed the puppet Yanukovych, who installed Viktor Shokin, who protected Zolchevsky, who was the owner of Burisma. The owner of Burisma, who they used to trap Hunter Biden and get him to hold the bag while these guys embezzled the money from Ukraine in service to Putin. So that's how they would have done it. That's how would have Trump. That was Trump's goal. Trump was supposed to pressure Zelensky into giving up. Remember, Trump, once Zelensky, Yanukovych was kicked out of office by the Ukrainian people, they elected Zelensky, and then Trump pressured Zelensky by saying, hey, dude, you want these weapons to protect you from Russia, but I'm not going to give them to you unless you help me out. So the whole point of Trump being there, remember, Trump was supposed to dismantle NATO, and that way, Ukraine could have been defeated just with corruption. That was the plan. That's what Ron Johnson wanted to happen. That's what Donald Trump wanted to happen. That's what Putin wanted to happen. They want Ukraine to fall through corruption. This military invasion was like a secondary choice.
Under Biden's weakness, he did. Once invaded, once we were not able to repel him initially, now this just grinds down because nobody's going to be bombing Moscow cities to reduce the popular support for the war in Russia, and you just grind.
You don't have to, right? You don't have to bomb Moscow. Why would you? See, what is Ron Johnson trying to escalate? Dude, no one's talking about bombing Moscow. Fuck off with your bombing Moscow. I'm talking about liberating Ukraine. All we have to do is help Ukraine retake its territory. We will let the Russians deal with Putin themselves. Because what's Russia going to do? What's Putin going to tell his people once Russia has been kicked out of Ukraine and they have nothing to show for it? Russia invaded Ukraine and have nothing to show for it but mounds of dead Russians. That's all he's done. That's the only thing Putin has succeeded in doing, is making a bunch of dead Russians. That's it. So Ron Johnson has a point. We have to give Ukraine more weapons and fighter jets to repel, to break the stalemate, and to help Ukraine retake its territory. That's the only way Putin is going to get removed from office. We can't directly remove Putin from office. We can't directly attack Moscow. We can't directly do anything to Russia. All we can do is protect ourselves, and we allow the internal contradictions, its own internal contradictions, Russia's own internal contradictions, to destroy itself. That's all we have to do. We don't need to bomb Moscow. What the fuck is Ron Johnson going off about, bombing Moscow? Nobody wants to bomb Moscow, dude. Fuck off. Fuck off, warmonger.
Ukraine down, you just destroy it bit by bit, kill more people. I don't see this getting better.
Yeah, right? That's why he makes a good point. We have to give them more weapons. Yes, Ron Johnson, let's give them F-16 fighter jets. I agree, Ron Johnson. Fighter jets. More weapons. I agree. More, better weapons. Thank you, Ron Johnson, for making that point.
So at some point in time, you have to recognize the reality situation.
Yep. Recognize it, dude. Unless we give Ukraine more weapons, they're just going to get ground down. We have to give them fighter jets. Fighter jets, air superiority. They're fighting, they're using like MiG-25s, which are like Soviet-era jets. What? They're using MiG-25s, dude, from last century. They're using jets from last century to defend themselves. Come on. Listen to Ron Johnson. Give them fighter jets. Give Ukraine fighter jets. But you got to watch out, right? Ron Johnson's it's a tricky guy. Ron Johnson. Da-da-da. Where'd he go? Oops, I got the wrong one up. Ron Johnson's a tricky guy. Ron Johnson. Where'd it go? I just saved it, didn't I? Did I save it in the wrong spot? Yeah, there you go. Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson's a tricky guy. This is in September 6th of 2020. Ron, shreds of freedom. Johnson is a few bratwursts short of a tailgate. This is precisely the line of attack that the U.S. intelligence community said that the Russian ratfuckers would pursue this time around, and Johnson is the primary parrot. What are they talking about? We have kept a weather eye on Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, ever since the Tea Party coal slurry avalanche swept him into office a decade ago. Up until the arrival of El Caudillo del Mar-a-Lago, Johnson was fairly run-of-the-mill wingnut legislator. But then, in 2018, over the Independence Day holiday, over July 4th, 2018, Ron Johnson took a trip and came back as a menace to the American people, the American Republic. Where did Ron Johnson go on July 4th of 2018? He went to Moscow! Ron Johnson went to Moscow on July 4th to pay allegiance to Putin. How coincidental you believe this depends very much on the condition of the turnip truck that brought you to town. On July 4th, 2018, Johnson and several other Republican senators were entertained in Moscow by, among other people, Sergei Kislyak, a central figure among the Volga bagmen and good friend of Michael Flynn, then the Russophilic White House National Security Advisor. Johnson, who previously had been a harsh critic of the regime of Vladimir Putin, returned from Russia on this trip with kasha failing to melt in his mouth. From the Washington Examiner, Johnson said he's worried that Congress overreacted to Russia's election interference, which resulted in legislation that tied Trump's hands with mandatory sanctions. I've been pretty upfront that the election interference, as serious as that was, and unacceptable, is not the greatest threat to our democracy, he said. We've blown it way out of proportion, as if it's the greatest threat to democracy. So remember, he said this in 2020. Donald Trump would go on to try to overthrow the American democracy on January 6, 2021. He would later go on to try to overthrow democracy. So, yeah, dude, it really was the greatest threat to American democracy since the Civil War. It really was. Why? Ron Johnson is like really, really buddy-buddy. Where'd it go? Oh no. Open with. In friend view. Check that out. That's Ron Johnson. That's Ron Johnson in Moscow on July 4th. Ah! Look at all those senators. All these senators, all these Republican senators are in Moscow on July 4th. Remember, in 2018, remember, Donald Trump just took power because the Russians helped him into there. And the whole point of Donald Trump and these Republicans was to get rid of NATO and help weaken Ukraine so that it could be taken over through corruption. That way, Putin wouldn't have to invade with his army. He just wants to take it over with corruption. But yeah, Ron Johnson telling everyone, oh, don't worry about Russia, don't worry about Russia, is in Russia on July 4th, 2018. Dude is totally a traitor. He's a traitor. He's a traitor. All the Republicans are traitors. Oh, man. Okay, what else do we got? Oh, look. Oh, look. There's Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn and Roger Stone. This guy's a traitor. Remember, he got fired from the Trump administration because he was a spy working for Turkey and Russia. He betrayed the Kurds and had them all and had Donald Trump murder a bunch of Kurds through Turkey. And it was terrible because Donald Trump told our forces to tell the Kurds to take down their defenses. And then the very next day, the Turkish forces roll in and murder all the Kurds. Donald Trump betrayed the Kurds. This motherfucker is the one who did it. Michael Flynn. He's a traitor to the United States, and he got clemency from Donald Trump. Same thing with Roger Stone. Roger Stone is a rat fucker. He helped orchestrate the overthrow of American democracy in the year 2000. He orchestrated Brook Brothers riot version 1.0 in Florida, which kicked the election to the Supreme Court, which voted 5-4 along party lines to give the election to to W. Bush. W. Bush would go on to start the Iraq and Afghanistan war and appoint John Roberts to the Supreme Court. John Roberts would go on to enable dark money and to outlaw abortion and to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. Like, they're a bunch of fucking Nazis. And then this guy would later on in 2000 try again to do a Brooks Brother riot 2.0 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in order to stop them from counting the votes in that very important state. Because Donald Trump needed to win that state in order to like win the election, and he didn't win. So they tried to stop it through all sorts of ways. They tried to get the mail-in voting thrown out, because if they could throw out mail-in voting, then Donald Trump would win. Like, it was dumb. These guys are fucking criminals, and they were given clemency by a criminal, Donald Trump. Fuck them in the neck. So, but let's remember who Donald Trump is. Let's just remember, right?
Yes, from a historical perspective, an indictment against a former president is unprecedented. But given that we're talking about this particular former president, Donald J. Trump, can you honestly say to yourself that an indictment is a surprise?
Remember who Donald Trump is.
The first thing anyone ever knew about his business practices was when he and his father had to settle with the Justice Department decades ago over accusations that they illegally refused to rent apartments to black people.
So the first time we fucking hear of Donald Trump is through his dad, because they own apartment complexes, buildings, and they won't rent to black people because they're fucking racist. Oh, the very, very, very first thing we hear about Donald Trump is that he's racist. Okay. The very, very first thing we hear about Donald Trump is that he's racist. Okay.
Then by the time he was entering politics, he was paying another gigantic settlement, a $25 million settlement over fraud claims involving his fake university that he put his name on.
So he made a university, he put his name on it, and he took people's money, and after they took people's money, it turned out the university that they paid for wasn't real. They never got any classes, they never got a degree, they never got nothing. Donald Trump just fucking took their money for tuition and ran away. And then he had to pay $25 million and then dissolve his criminal organization. And people are like, "Oh, we love this guy."
Then his family charity was shut down and fined millions of dollars as a fraud. Then
because he uses the charity as his own personal funds. He doesn't do the charity to do actual charitable actions. He doesn't take in the money and then use that money to give it to poor people or help out poor people. No, he says he's going to help out poor people. They give him the money, and then he takes that money to use on his own stuff. He doesn't help anybody out. He's a fraud. The guy, Donald Trump, is a lifetime long fraud for life. Anyone who follows this guy, anyone who voted for this guy, has the same values as him. They're frauds. And they like hurting weak people weaker themselves.
National Security Advisor pled guilty to lying to the FBI twice. Then his
right? This guy, that's right. He lied to the FBI twice because he was covering up the coup that was ongoing. And he's on Team Turkey and Russia against Team USA. Remember, I have a picture of Michael Flynn hanging out with fucking Vladimir Putin. Where's it at? It's the one before, maybe? Oh, I can't find it. I thought it was there, dude. It has to be here. No, I don't know where it is. I don't know. I had it. I don't know where it went. I'm looking. View large. I don't know where it is. All right, well, it's not important. Anyways, bad guy, Mike Flynn.
Campaign chairman went to federal prison on fraud charges. Then his deputy campaign.
Yeah, okay, so remember Mike, remember this guy. This guy, Paul Manafort. He's the one who helped, see, I need access to my fucking desktop, dude. Paul Manafort, oh no, not this one. But Paul Manafort is the one who helped Yanukovych get into office. This guy was the puppet of Vladimir Putin, and who got kicked out by the Ukrainian people. He got into office with help from Paul Manafort. So right after Paul Manafort helped Yanukovych get into office, he went and helped Donald Trump.
Fraud charges. Then his deputy campaign chairman went to federal prison as well. Then his personal lawyer went to federal prison on fraud and campaign finance charges. Then his other personal lawyer had his law license suspended on his way to potential disbarment. And his longest serving political advisor was convicted on multiple felony counts and sentenced to federal prison for, among other things, witness intimidation. And his White House senior advisor was arrested on the yacht of a Chinese billionaire, picked up on fraud charges. And it turns out that preceded the Chinese billionaire himself being arrested on fraud charges.
Birds of a feather flock together.
And as president, he himself was impeached twice, which is a record, with more impeachment votes against him from members of his own party than any other president in history.
Birds of a feather flock together. Man, these guys are total criminals. They're slimy, bad, the worst people ever. Racist. They're anti-American. Birds of a feather flock together.
And even since then, his company, which is literally called the Trump Organization, was convicted on multiple felony fraud charges.
Birds of a feather flock together.
And his longtime CFO is in Rikers as we speak. And when it comes to playing the odds and wondering what the stakes are for our country if an indictment in fact comes down for this former president, we literally have to disambiguate the question so as to clarify which of the three known jurisdictions in which he's under criminal investigation are likely to go first. So really, is this a surprise? It's not like this is a normal former president. Not just because.
Yeah, right? Think about how bad he is and how many people are drawn to him. How bad is Donald Trump and how many people are drawn to him? Drawn to what he represents. Drawn to his values. Millions of Americans think, wow, that guy's a total fraud and the scum of the earth. That's what I want to be. Millions of Americans share this guy's values. Birds of a feather flock together. All right, so let's go back to Cohen. Now, remember, okay, so Donald Trump, one of the ways Donald Trump might go to prison, there's like a bunch of them, right? There's an investigation in Georgia right now because he called the state of Georgia and verbally asked them on recording, asked them to overthrow the election. So that's one investigation into Donald Trump. The other investigation into Donald Trump was back in 2016. Donald Trump paid hush money to a sex worker, and then lied about it on his campaign to hide it from the campaign. And he sent his lawyer to prison to cover it up. That's the one I'm talking about, though. That's the one I'm talking about. When Donald Trump paid the porn star, the sex worker, to be quiet about his affair, birds of a feather flock together. For that one, he literally threatened the DA, the prosecutor of New York, saying that if you indict me or arrest me, that he's gonna like call upon people to do violence. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's trying to call on people to rise up, and already there are death threats being sent to the DA because Donald Trump has been saying the things he's been saying. So I understand there's a lot of Americans who are like, yeah, I dig criminals. I'm all about death and destruction and genocide and criminal behavior. That's why they support Donald Trump, right? Birds of a feather flock together. You know, certainly they see this crime spree that he's been doing his whole life. They're like, yeah, I really identify with crime. Yeah, that's what I want to vote for. All right.
The case of Michael Cohen, the president's former lawyer and confidant for many years. In August 2018, he pleaded guilty to campaign finance violations over large hush money payments he arranged before the 2016 election to keep porn star Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal from talking about sexual affairs they had with Donald Trump. You guys remember this one? Well, after Barr became Attorney General in February of 2019, he worked to kill further investigations related to those payoffs and suggested that Mr. Cohen's conviction on campaign finance charges itself be reversed, even though 6 months had already passed since Cohen.
So Donald Trump put in his new Attorney General, Billy Barr. Remember I told you Billy Barr's a bad guy? He's a cleaner. So Billy Barr came in as Attorney General, and Donald Trump said, hey, Billy Barr, I want you to kill this investigation into me. There's this investigation into me. I want you to stop it. And Billy Barr said, okay, Donald Trump, I'll do whatever you want. And so he killed the investigation. He stopped the Justice Department from doing any more investigations into the campaign finance violations.
Had entered a guilty plea. Amazingly, after Cohen was in prison for a year and then being transferred out of prison to home confinement during COVID-19, Barr and the DOJ intervened to block his transfer because Cohen would not immediately accept as a condition of his ankle bracelet home confinement not to engage in First Amendment activities, specifically writing and publishing a book.
So what he's saying is that, remember during COVID-19, like, because prisons are a bad place to stop the spread of COVID-19. So the United States let out a whole bunch of people in prison and kept them at home so they wouldn't spread COVID-19. Michael Cohen was one of those people that was supposed to go home because of COVID-19. But Billy Barr came in from the feds, came all the way down to his level and said, no, you can't go home, because if you go home, Michael Cohen is going to write a book. He's going to write a book about how Donald Trump paid Stormy Daniels a bunch of money to keep quiet. And Billy Barr doesn't want you to do that, because if you do that, then you'll shed a light on how Billy Barr killed the investigation into it. So Billy Barr, in order to punish Michael Cohen and stop him from telling everyone what happened, he kept him in prison during COVID-19. Why? Because Donald Trump told him to. Donald Trump intervened into the Justice Department. Remember how I told you how the Justice Department and the President, the executive office, are supposed to be separated so that the Justice Department can be independent, so it can prosecute justice fairly and justly, independently? Well, Donald Trump erased that, and he and Billy Barr were real tight. So anything Donald Trump wanted to happen, Billy Barr made sure it happened. So Donald Trump wanted to kill the investigation into into him through Stormy Daniels. He told Billy Barr to kill it. Billy Barr made sure it was dead. And if Michael Cohen was going to go spread the word, Billy Barr was going to make sure Michael Cohen couldn't do that and instead sat in prison. So the story wouldn't get out. Birds of a feather flock together.
About Donald Trump or saying anything in public on TV or in the social media about Donald Trump. Cohen had already been home for 2 weeks when this unconstitutional demand from DOJ appeared, and when he and his attorney dared to ask questions about it,
they sent him back.
Federal marshals showed up with handcuffs and shackles, and he was returned to the Otisville Correctional Institute. There he spent 16 days in solitary confinement before they were able to get his case before a federal district judge, who immediately found that Barr's purpose, quote, in transferring Cohen from release on furlough and home confinement back to custody was retaliatory in response to Cohen desiring to exercise his First Amendment rights to publish a book critical of the president and to discuss the book on social media.
So in other words, Michael Cohen was already free. He had already been released. He was already at home for 2 weeks. This was not a condition of his release. This came after he was already home for 2 weeks, already working on his book, already doing his stuff. After he was already home, then the Attorney General, Billy Barr, came down and said, look, you can't keep doing what you're doing or you're going to go back to prison. And Michael Cohen's like, well, what do you mean? I can't do what I'm doing. And Michael Cohen and then Billy Barr said, oh, you're asking questions, back to prison. And not just back to prison, he went to solitary confinement. He sat in solitary confinement for like 18 days, dude. That would drive me crazy. For nothing. And why? Just because Billy Barr wanted to make him suffer. Because as soon as he went in front of a judge is like, this is bullshit, dude. What are you doing? This is totally retaliatory. You can't do this. This is bullshit. You're free to go, mister. Go back home, Mr. Cohen. But so that's the thing. You can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. That's how cops and do extrajudicial punishment. So Barr did extrajudicial punishment to Cohen just because he could before he went before a judge. Cops are not supposed to dish out punishment. Cops are not supposed to have nothing to do with punishment whatsoever. Because look how they can abuse their power. Billy Barr, in order to shut up Michael Cohen, forced him to sit in solitary confinement for like 2 weeks. As punishment for daring to challenge the edict of Donald Trump, like a king, like as if he were a king. Damn, dude! Look how many people support Donald Trump. Birds of a feather flock together. Donald Trump's a racist, criminal, wannabe dictator king.
Can you think of a more egregious example of weaponizing the Department of Justice for nakedly political purposes than imprisoning and putting in solitary confinement the president's own former lawyer simply because he wanted to exercise his First Amendment rights? Consider the...
Right? There's nothing worse than that. The president put his own former lawyer in prison in solitary confinement just to keep him from writing a book about the president. That's weaponization of government, dude. That's Gestapo tactics. That's Nazi shit. Donald Trump was doing it, and he did it already. That was like years ago, dude, and he still got supporters. He still has Nazi supporters. Everyone who supports Donald Trump is a Nazi. Birds of a feather flock together. If you weren't a Nazi, why are you with Donald Trump? This story came out. Officers responding to the Uvalde shooting said they were afraid to immediately engage the gunman because he was using an AR-15. This drove their decision to wait over an hour for a Border Patrol SWAT team. In other words, cops are so afraid of assault rifles, they will sit an hour and let children be killed one by one and bleed out and die because they're so afraid of assault rifles. And at the same time, you say, then why don't we fucking regulate these things if cops are so afraid of them? But if you try to regulate them, all of a sudden, all these people will be like, oh, you can't regulate my guns. You can't stop me from touching my guns. Motherfucker, cops are afraid of these things, and you don't want to regulate them? What the fuck? What the fuck? So the other day, Donald Trump held a rally, for a Nazi rally in Waco, Texas, because, you know, he's a criminal, he's a fraud, he's a racist. So people who share his values came to see him. You know, he's an enemy of the United States. So people who share his values came to see him. So he's there. Here he is in Waco, and behind him, playing on the big screen, are scenes of the January 6th insurrection, where he tried to send a bunch of people to overthrow the government of the United States. And then as he's there, as this is playing in the background, his people trying to overthrow the government of the United States. It's as footage from the Jan 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol is displayed in the background, former President Donald Trump stands while a song, Justice for All, is played during a campaign rally at Waco Regional Airport, Saturday, March 25th. So all these people want to overthrow the government, the United States. They all want to overthrow the United States. And here's Donald Trump saying, well, crazy stuff.
Get rid of the death tax on farms.
No, whatever death tax on farms, you fucker, dude. So there was the thing called the estate tax. The estate tax basically hit people who were rich, who had like millions of dollars worth of stuff. Not farmers, dude. Farmers don't have millions of dollars worth of stuff. I'm talking like rich ass people. It would go after rich ass people, the estate tax. And Donald Trump is a defender of rich ass people. So he got rid of the estate tax and to help rich people. So let me start this again.
I got rid of the death tax on farms.
No,
so
that was not the.
When you do pass away, on the assumption that you love your children, you can leave it to them and they won't have to pay tax.
On the assumption that you love your children? That's kind of weird, dude. That's kind of weird.
But if you don't love your children so much, and there are some people that don't, and maybe deservedly so, it won't matter, because frankly, you don't have to leave them anything. Thank you very much. Have fun.
That's weird. If you don't love your children, you don't have to leave them anything? Have fun? Ooh, what? What is Donald Trump going off about? I don't understand, Donald Trump. That was weird. Why are you like talking like that about your kids? Oh, that's why. That's why. Ivanka Trump tries to get out of Trump org fraud lawsuit with delay of trial request. This happened like last week. Ivanka Trump has asked for a delay in the fraud lawsuit against her family's Trump organization as her lawyers scramble to prove she has nothing to do with the case. Ivanka's lawyers claim the suit does not contain a single allegation that Ms. Trump directly or indirectly created, prepared, reviewed, or certified any of her father's financial statements. Other individuals were responsible for those tasks, she added. So in other words, she's throwing her family under the bus. She's getting the hell out of that thing. She's like, no, guys, I'm not involved in the Trump org. That was all you guys. I wasn't in that. So Donald Trump is angry because that's a betrayal of loyalty. So Donald Trump is like projecting to his kids that he's not going to leave them anything. Damn, dude. That's a messed up family. But look at all those people at Waco. Birds of a feather flock together. They're like, yes, those are my values. Overthrowing democracy, crime, extortion, intimidation, infidelity. Those are all, everyone who follows Donald Trump shares those values. Birds of a feather flock together. Okay. So, oh wait, this one. This is funny. Imagine spending the better part of the last 5 years having your brain and ego melted by uninterrupted pole exposure. Flying to Washington in the middle of a pandemic, to hear Trump whine about Oprah and Mike Pence at a rally. Marching up to Congress on his orders to smash ship and then mill around aimlessly. You go home and hear that Biden won anyway, and all of your favorite Twitter news sources named Patriot Newsmen of the West with avatars of Roman statues have posted your photo online and are labeling you a gay communist Antifa actor. Then the next day, the God Emperor you pasted into Warhammer memes puts out a video cucking himself and bending the knee. I'm sorry, those were heinous acts. Please let me tweet again, Jack. You can't leave DC because the airlines had dubbed you a flight risk. You can't stay because the cops are actively looking for you after one of their own died. Your roommate at the only hotel that would accept you is a guy named Kekistan 1488 who wants to show you his Goblin Slayer torrents. The sun is going down and you're getting cold. Stupid jerks. Okay, the thing I wanted to show you before we went too much farther is the difference between a wolf and a husky. Everyone looks at huskies and go, "Oh, you look just like a wolf, husky." But no, wolves are like scary, scary things. One wolf is scary. Imagine like 10 of them. And you're in the dark in the forest with no fire. You're fucking dead, dude. Just so you get an idea, right? That's a wolf and that's a husky. So imagine, yeah, that's a husky and that's a wolf. Imagine 10 of these things hunting you in the middle of the night in the forest. You're dead. Oh, wait a minute. Here's another one. That's a husky, and that's a wolf. Wolves are really, really big. That's a husky, and that's a wolf. Wolves are big. Wolves are really big animals. That's a husky, and that's a wolf. Those are huskies. Those are regular dogs. Huskies and a big dog, and that's a wolf. Look how much bigger that wolf is, dude. That thing will murder you. Just one will murder you. Imagine 10 of them. Imagine you didn't have firearms. You only had like a sword. You're dead, dude. Yeah, no wonder our ancestors were terrified of wolves. They're fucking huge, and they will kill you. Yeah, just one wolf is terrifying. Imagine a pack of them. So anyways, I really like the EU. I think they're pretty cool. I think it's a good idea. I think the EU is smart to stick together, because if they stick together, they can stop the centuries and centuries of war in Europe. It is like the first proactive thing they've done to stop war in Europe. I think it's a really good idea that the European nations band together. In fact, did you hear the story that the Nordic nations are pooling their resources and combining their air forces into one big Nordic air force? Pretty fucking cool, dudes. Pretty cool. I dig it. So yeah. So Putin is like had a meeting with with China. And the purpose of that meeting was for Putin to get as much help from China as it could, because Putin is not winning the war. Just like Ukraine is not really winning the war, Putin is not winning the war. He made all his major advancements in the first week. And after the first week, all he's done is lose in Ukraine. I mean, he hasn't really made any major advancements. He can't even take Bakhmut. And after losing thousands and thousands and thousands of Russians there. He can't take it. So Putin was begging Xi to help him out, to help him do stuff, to help him win in Ukraine. Xi looks at the situation and sees Taiwan. She wants to invade Taiwan and subjugate Taiwan the same way that Russia wants to invade Ukraine and subjugate Ukraine. But she is watching what's happening in Ukraine and sees that it's going real bad, and thinks that if China were to do the same thing to Taiwan, it would end the same way. She would not be able to defeat Taiwan, and it would end in a bloody stalemate. It would be a bloody stalemate. It would be bloody, and nothing would change. It would be bloody, and nothing would change. So she did not give heavy weapons to Russia, but she wants to cultivate a dependence of Russia on China. That's the deal. China wants to weaken Russia enough so that Russia becomes a junior partner, and that Russia will just give China whatever it needs, and that Russia won't get anything back in return. So that's the game that she is playing. But at the same time she went to China, the Japanese Prime Minister went to Ukraine as a counterweight. So I think that's pretty cool too. I'm like, yeah, China, or yeah, Japan, show China what's up. So Japan, doesn't really have the same kind of military that everyone else does. But that doesn't mean that Japan can't support Ukraine in other ways. And I think that's good that the Japanese Prime Minister went to the site of war crimes to observe for himself the war crimes committed by Russia. So, all right. Anyways, yeah, what's the last thing? I made a Minecraft server, a Java Minecraft server. So if you want to play Minecraft, this world right here is on my personal machine. But if you want to play Minecraft with me, I figured out a way to run a Minecraft server on a virtual machine in the Oracle Cloud. And it doesn't cost me anything. And it's a good server. So if you want to check it out, let me know. And I'll give you the IP. Yeah. Okay. USA, America, everyone. Let's focus on keeping things together and finding another source of energy. Because this whole war in Europe is only possible because everyone's dependent on oil still. If we got off of oil, then Russia would have no power to invade anyone else. So let's focus on saving the world and stopping war through making oil moot. Okay, America, until next time. Peace. Pogo Kiddo out. Stop.